And joining us now, Don Mischer. A pleasure to say hello to one of the great Emmy Award-winning producer, director of so many memorable live television events, and the author of 10 Seconds to Air, My Life in the Director's Chair. Don Mischer, thank you for taking some time out. And
My pleasure, Ross. I love talking about this show, and you and I have spoken about it many times through the year.
we have indeed. One thing we haven't done is talk about the book, and I want to begin there. What got you to do a book? Many people say I'm going to do it. You did it. What's
Well, I had so many great stories about working with Prince in the rain for the Super Bowl, and Muhammad Ali when he had Parkinson's, how we surprised the world with him at the torch. Being the last guy to touch the American torch and light the Olympic flame. My stories with Michael Jackson and people I work with, and I've told them a lot. People found them interesting, and I just said, what the heck? I'm going to write them down, So I'm very happy with the book. It's called 10 Seconds to Air, and it's really my love story, in a sense, about television, how I got infected with television when it first came to my hometown, which was 1949 in San Antonio, Texas, and kind of planted a seed that grew, and the adventures became a lifetime career. I've loved television. My life has been influenced by television, and the good and the bad of it. But I tend to focus more on the good. And it's not just all about shows I've done. It's about how the day that brother John Kennedy was assassinated, I was at the University of Texas in Austin awaiting his arrival. And he was an erudite young president. I loved him. I couldn't wait to see him. And we were at the airport to actually meet him when we found out that he had been shot in Dallas. And that was kind of the event that pushed me into television permanently. Up to that time, television had been around about 12 or 13 years, but television helped us heal as a nation. That weekend, we grieved together. We saw all the subsequent events in Dallas that happened together.
We watched the shooting.
Television came of age that weekend, at least for me.
We watched it. We watched the shooting live on television.
I watched the shooting live of Oswald on television. I was at the airport waiting to meet a delegation of students from the University of Texas when Walter Cronkite finally took his glasses off and said, apparently it's official, the president has died, at 2:30, 1:30 Texas time and 2:30 Eastern Standard Time. And that was like a major emotional blow. And on top of it, all the reporter, Lyndon Johnson, of course, was with John Kennedy when he was assassinated. And Lyndon Johnson was now president of the United States. And so that afternoon, television converged on Austin. And I was studying political science, and they needed gophers and drivers and all of this to take them around. And I was blown away by how quickly these reporters kind of invaded Austin. Within a matter of hours, had stories out on the air about the new president. And that's when I said, this is a medium. I have to take a shot with television. I'd wanted to all along, but never felt it was a legitimate job. Nor did my father.
Right. What did he say? You're a kid from Southwest Texas, and I got to imagine they looked at you and said, television? Are you out of your mind?
Yeah, it was just, look, I was very happy to be at the University of Texas. And when that happened, I was kind of the right guy at the right time to help out, but in the end, my dad, was never really encouraging me to make work in television. And, I worked with all these stars of the time, you know, um, so many of them. John Denver, who was popular then, and Barbara Streisand and, um, Liza Minnelli and all these people. That made no difference to my dad. When I told him one day that I was doing Bob Hope's 80th birthday,
That did it.
he said, "Okay, man, you've made it."
But from what you're telling me, you were on that track to be in the news area. Somewhere there was a big left or right turn, and you went to these high gloss, giant productions. We're up against. We'll talk in a minute about the Oscars. You've done many of those political conventions. How did that come about? The big ticket items.
Well, growing up, I played music. I played in a country band. I loved music. And when I had the opportunity to get into television, um, I really enjoyed working with musical artists, and it was kind of in my bones, in my blood. And so my associations with those artists, um, with many of which continue today, are really that's how I got pulled away from news. News still has its own value in television, and news is a way that we celebrate as a nation, like we did in 1969 when we landed on the moon, or we grieve the way we did when Challenger blew up or when John Kennedy was killed in Austin. So news does show you, I think, the power of television, but was not something that as a subject matter for my particular work, I wanted. I liked big events. I liked moving people emotionally. I liked creating television programs with surprises, like the Muhammad Ali lighting of the cauldron with the Parkinsons. There were 5 of us who knew, and I had to fight to keep that a secret. I mean, and I had a deal actually with Howard Bingham, who was Muhammad Ali's kind of guide and leader and biographer. And the deal was, if this word gets out that he's lighting a torch in Atlanta, okay, even at the morning of the show, if that word sneaks out, I reserve the right to change the last person who holds the flame, which would have been Evander Holyfield, who was also from Georgia, you know? So it's fighting to keep surprises, um, is really, really important, and striking an emotional chord, striking the emotional chord, making people feel something, making it memorable for them. And if you're lucky, helping them make a memory that they will never forget for the rest of their lives.
So here we are at the Oscars. That's just one of the big events this calendar year, um, and you've done your share of Academy Awards. What is that like in and of itself? Take us through what happens from the planning to the 3, 2, 1. We're on the air live.
Okay. Um, the first thing is that the Oscars, like most award shows, you I've always felt like more can go wrong than can go right, because there's 2 things that make Oscars really emotional and make them home runs in my own feeling. And one is who wins, and the second one is what they say when they get to the microphone. And the producer has absolutely no control over either one of those. So you're kind of rolling the dice when the Oscars happen. Um, but you hope for certain things, and award shows were always difficult for me because I couldn't control those things. I couldn't guarantee there were going to be emotional moments, and so it's just the way it is. But I got to tell you, they put my kids through college. The award shows that.
Wait, there a moment of now once you're in the director's chair and you're live, is there a moment or two you can recount that just uh, put you in a tailspin where you were where you said, "Uh-oh."
Yeah. I'll tell you, one of those moments is, yeah, let's go back one step. The Oscars initially were a wonderful event in the Roosevelt Ballroom over on Hollywood Boulevard.
Right.
Black tie, people dressed to the hilt, my big orchestra, dinner, dancing, and after dinner, oh, by the way, a few awards, okay? Those were magnificent. They had a heartfelt, unmanipulated feel to it. When television comes in, it changes the whole thing. I mean, suddenly booking is important. Taking commercial breaks is important. Who you get out there in front of the camera uh, is also very, very important. And a lot of people tell you how to do it,
Mhm.
So I look back on those days, the early days, and say, that's probably the way it should be. But today, you're really serving two masters with the Oscars. You're serving the Motion Picture Academy, the film industry, where I'll tell you that an award for makeup and hair can be just as significant as Best Actor or Best Director, or, whatever, Best Film. So you have to service the film industry, but you also have to service the um, the the people that are watching at home and the sponsors who pay for it. So they tend to want categories that are not on the broadcast, you know, and so the film industry would like to have all those categories on the broadcast. Or one award is just as important as the others, but the networks, they don't. Now, I don't know what they're doing today. I'll be honest with you. Do they have a separate event for some of the lesser awards, or are they all? Because when I was doing them, we had them all presented on the air, you know.
They do less of them now and try to give some off camera. I think there are 13 awards now in the big thing. With the Emmys, they certainly do that. They have the crafts on a completely different night.
Yeah.
And they split that. So they are, it's exactly as you say, they are trying to minimize the number of awards because they don't want to lose the viewers, which brings me to that. Viewership has been down, not just for the Oscars, but for many of these award shows. What do you see in that? Are people just less interested in that?
I think, by the way, I just heard my gardener coming, and I may have to get up and tell him not to blow and cut.
See, that's the live stuff. That's the live stuff.
It's live. We are live, right? But the question again was about
The viewership. And are
yeah.
people as interested in these giant, I call them big tent events, today as they were, perhaps 10, even 5 years ago?
I think that there's a direct correlation between the sources, the platforms through which we entertain ourselves. They have proliferated. Back when I was doing the Oscars, there may have been 15, 20 channels carrying them. Now there's hundreds of possibilities. And I think the importance of a particular show can't help but be diluted a little bit by the fact that there's just so many streaming services and so forth that that give you the entertainment. So it's not like the Oscars in my house growing up
Mhm.
were appointment television. And my dad would come home early from work and we would watch the Oscars on Monday night. They'd be on at about 5 or 6 o'clock in Texas. And we as a family never missed them. That doesn't happen now. I mean, like my kids, and I've got 4 of them, um, they may choose to watch the Oscars, but it's not appointment television. They don't make an evening of it. They don't gather the family around to watch them. It's if they're not watching something else, they'll watch it. And it's hard to stay relevant, in that kind of an environment. And I think the Oscars, like many award shows, face the dilemma of ratings going down, and that in turn will end up affecting um, the Motion Picture Academy. It's affected the Television Academy a little bit because those organizations, they exist because of the fees they get from doing, like the Motion Picture Academy exists on the fees that it gets for doing the Oscars. I don't know what it is now, but when I was doing them, it was about $120 million a year, and that covered everything that the Motion Picture Academy did, including the uh, uh, film preservation, their overhead over on Wilshire Boulevard, and all the rest of it. That covered their entire nut, you know.
And so that's so important, and something that comes to mind, the Screen Actors Guild, the SAG Awards, just occurred, and they did it on Netflix. Is the streaming component of this gonna take a bigger a bigger
Yeah, I think that's exactly what's happening. And yeah, Netflix will come in and take over. They'll take a little piece of the pie, and you'll watch on Netflix. And I think that that's what's happening. We're kind of becoming fractured in terms of um, the sources of our entertainment. There is so much good stuff out there right now. I, it's mind-boggling, in my opinion.
Mhm.
You know, and there's so many wonderful things that we can watch now. Yeah,
That's where
but
things have changed.
yeah, just and you name it, and boy, it's all out there. But it's going to be harder for the academies to keep pulling the books in. I have a feeling. Now. This is just an opinion.
Mhm.
I, I'm wrong. Okay.
Wi with your opinion, stretch that to the summertime, because something else you're very familiar with are the conventions, the political conventions, another big ticket item, large tent. Talking to a colleague of mine who said, "This is where the networks pay the parties to get into the big halls," and I don't think they like doing that anymore. What do you make of all of that hoopla? And do you really, not you, do the viewers really care about watching 3, 4 nights of the convention? Because that was appointment television back in the day.
Yes. Well, at that time, things really happened at the convention.
Yeah.
They kicked off on Monday night, and on Thursday night, the nominee, whoever that might be, made a big speech, and the decisions were made over that 4-day window. And so you had real spontaneity at conventions. It was like participating in the democratic process. I loved watching them as a kid when I was 10 and 11 years growing up. At that young age, I enjoyed it. Now, the networks don't care about covering conventions because they're basically produced shows. Back when I was watching television as a kid, when signs came out on the part of the crowd that's at the convention center, the delegates on the floor, they were all homemade, and I did the convention in 2004, and I said that I wanted some signs. And whoever the nominee was, Kerry ended up getting nominated, wanted some signs.
Mhm.
And out on the floor, the minute he accepted the nomination, all these signs went up, identical. They were identical. There was no spontaneity. They had been handed out, and that had been arranged by the back room someplace. I didn't even know that. And I was producing the convention, for many television networks. So, and many times the process is that we used to experience in terms of getting inside the decision making, inside the so-called back smoky room where deals were made to bring this guy in or this person in for vice president. We don't see any of that. It used to be the case that we saw much more of that. That made it a real event, and produced events where the hand of the producer comes in and controls everything
Mhm.
are not nearly as exciting as watching it actually happen.
At your core, are you a producer or a director? Which, if you immediately, spontaneously, what are you?
I probably am. Well, I really am both. I mean, I started as a director. I love directing, and there's no experience like directing a Super Bowl halftime show with Prince or Bruce Springsteen, or counting down to the beginning of the Olympics, and you know that 80% of the planet's going to ultimately see what you're doing. There's no experience like that. That's the directing experience. But um, I found that I could do more as a director when I was also producing it.
What's the
Uh,
difference in the discipline?
well, producing, let's just say that I wanted to use a sky cam, which they now use at football fields.
Mhm.
Wanted to use that over the convention arena. Producers got to approve that. Producers in charge of the budget. And so the director is kind of at his mercy in terms of whether he gets the lighting director he wants, the crew he wants, the DGA crew that he wants, and all that, because producers make those decisions.
Mhm.
It's a very, I don't know any convention
Mhm.
that's ever been produced that had the same producer and director. The Oscars, you can do it, but it's hard, all right, to do both. But it's more or less a team effort. But it all comes in trying to everybody's struggling to try and create this event that's got the emotion, and and sometimes producing and directing those things gives you the opportunity to do that. I mean, but there was a show I did once with Beyonce,
Mhm.
in which she sang. It was called Movies Rock, in which she sang "At Last," the Etta James song. Okay, and uh, we talked with Beyonce and her dad, and she agreed to sing it. And I felt it was just a little bit flat. We couldn't. There wasn't an emotional handle on it. And so because I was a producer on that show also, I was able to bring Etta James in. I've forgotten where she was from. Etta James sat in the second row, right down in front of Beyonce. And at the last minute, I said, Beyonce, Etta is going to be sitting right here. Make sure at some point you come over and play to her. And she did. And that became a much, much more emotional moment. And that's what you do. You can do when you're a producer and a director.
You got the whole ball of wax in your hands.
Yeah, and there's a person singing a song on television is great. Okay, but if you tell that person before the song gets some kind of way that let's say her mom, the singer's a woman, and her mom sang that song to her every night before she went to bed when she was growing up in Oklahoma. that makes it, just that makes a difference. It makes it, more emotion.
We had a monumental year in this business. Big strikes, Writers Guild, SAG-AFTRA. In what way do you think those strikes changed the live television business?
That's a very good question. And I wish, Ross, that I had a good answer for it. I know that they didn't exist during the strike,
Right.
but in terms of what happened to them, I don't know. Has there been an increase in them since the strike is over? I do know that people like watching live television because even though it's protected and you've got pros in every position doing it, people still know that something can go wrong. And if it goes wrong, how do you deal with it? Live television makes those things happen and believable, like Envelope Gate on the Oscars a few years back, when the wrong envelope was opened up and La La Land was awarded the Oscar, and it was really another film, and I've forgotten which one. But, and then how do you correct that? I mean, it's a mistake. But Glenn Wise, who was directing that, did the right thing. He admitted that a mistake was made. He told the stage manager, hold it up and show the camera. We all zoomed in and we saw the camera. Saw the ballot and all that. And that's the way to handle it. Some directors would cut to a wide shot and go to a commercial. So you got to be honest. You got to be honest. And that only happens on live television.
You're correct. I ran into him just the other day, and you're right. He did that in the right way, and that's what the director is all about. Producing.
That's the director.
Yeah. And that's what I mean by those uh-oh moments. And you got to think that you don't have time to think about uh-oh. You just have to react, don't you?
That is correct. You have to react, and by the time you've thought about it, it's too late. I got to tell you, with the Super Bowl halftime show with Janet Jackson and Justin Timberlake, where her breast was revealed,
right,
with a nipple ring on it or whatever it was. That shot was on for 20 frames. It takes 30 frames, 30 separate pictures, 1 second on television. They went 20 seconds on that frame and cut out. And you can't, only that happens on live television.
And do you remember all the people that were, oh my God, what happened? You would have thought that
it was a moral maelstrom. Morality, the network was fined, CBS was fined $500,000. Janet Jackson was boycotted on radio. It was just a complete overreaction. But this is what happens. There's a hysterical group of viewers out there that are waiting to see something happen and then jump in and complain about it,
And the children, they're watching the internet now. Today, you look at it and it's almost really a laugh on what. Let me ask you this as we move ahead. What do you see for this medium? What do you tell students that want to go into this business? They say, Don, I want to do what you've been doing. What do you tell them?
The first thing I say to them is studying it in school could be a little bit helpful, but it's not something you learn in school. I would say to a student, attach yourself to somebody who knows how to do it well. Okay? If you can get a job running as a gopher to getting coffee for somebody who really knows what they're doing. Just take Christopher, for example, Christopher Nolan. You get a job for him, running coffee for him. you're in the sweet spot because
Mhm.
you're going to learn from people who know how to do it. If you have something on the ball, if you have an attitude of dedication to the job where you never ask, do I have to work this weekend? You just assume you're going to work that weekend. You work hard, but you're working under the tutelage of someone who knows what they're doing. That's the way to learn it. And that is the way I think that is the best avenue to finding out how you can, getting into that business.
And how do you look at yourself now in this big tent? What would you like to do still in the world of television and big events?
I'm to the point where I'm kind of, um, what I really like to do is just kind of take a nap. I have done it. I have been blessed. Um, I just turned 84
Oh,
yesterday.
great. Happy
And,
birthday.
thank you. And I feel like I've been really fortunate to get where I've gotten. And more than anything, I've just really enjoyed it. I love it. I, and it's not like you don't think about it and you think about it, but you always think about other things that went wrong. But, it's been a really good life for me, and I've been very, very happy and very, very pleased. I've gotten to work in television in a lot of strange places, every place from China to Saudi Arabia, and each of those experiences were like extremely different. And I feel blessed. I really do.
And are you optimistic? Are you optimistic about this business?
I'm optimistic about the business. I'm not so optimistic about the world. I got to tell you, it's my wife, Susan, and I sit there watching news broadcasts and things come in. And it just makes it seem like we're bungling idiots and we can't get anything done, and what we do is not for the right reasons. But I think they say that every older generation has said that to the younger generation since ancient times. So I hope that that's what it is with me.
Hey, you're in you're in your 80s, you they say you could run for president during those years. I don't know what your
Well, I guess somebody is.
so, well, as you sit back and watch this business go around and improve, hopefully, it's gonna take some interesting turns. Will you get involved with some of it? Will you get involved with in an advisory capacity?
Oh, yeah, no, I would absolutely be happy to do that. I'm still doing some things. I mean, I'm doing a show in April, which I've done, which it has a value. I love doing it for it's live. It's got a lot of star value. It's called the Breakthrough Prize. And what we do is we give $3 million in cash to scientists, to men and women who physicists, um, uh, life science guys, people who are curing cancer and all that, mathematicians, and we're trying to pull people from other walks of life, into making them more glamorous with this show. Let's put it that way. If you're a kid out there and you're trying to think what you want to do, let's try and glamorize life sciences, studies with cancer, physics, mathematics. Let's glamorize that and give them 3 million bucks in cash. They can go to Hawaii with if they want to and spend it, or build a pool in their backyard, or buy a one-bedroom apartment with $3 million, in San Francisco. Who knows?
Where's it gonna air?
What's that?
Where is it gonna air?
It's going to air on YouTube, and there's one other possibility. We're going to shoot it in April, uh, um, at the new globe that's on top of the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences.
Sure.
Over where LACMA is, they extended
Museum, yeah. The museum area.
fun. It's fun. It's fun. And the scientists get to come together with stars, and they really respect each other. And Robert Downey Jr. may present an award, or Christopher Nolan, may present a grant with a scientist from the University of Texas in Austin or something.
And it's something that has the potential to make a difference in the world of many people.
That's right. That's why I like it.
Don Mischer, thank you so very much. Appreciate it so much. Hope to talk to you again. The book is 10 Seconds to Air: My Life in the Director's Chair, and actually your life on a lot of observations. We thank you very much, Don. Continue to.
Yeah, I always enjoy talking with you, Russ. Let's do it anytime you want to.
I look forward, Kurt. Thank you, Don.
Thank you, Pat.